Hello, everyone. Welcome. I hope everyone's comfortable and getting settled in. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I know it's been a big week of exciting meetings, but this is by far the best one. So you made the right choice signing up. So in case we haven't met, my name is Adriana Barbary, and I'm the project coordinator for the Charlotte Lake Revitalization. This workshop marks a really exciting progress of the project. And it's one of our final information gathering activities. So that means there might not be any more surveys, or at least for a little while. At this moment, I'm going to introduce Mayor Frances Smith, a very familiar face and a really strong contributor to the community. And she's going to just say a few words to set us off. Over to you, Fran.
Thank you, Adriana. First of all, I want to welcome everyone and thank you to the panelists that are with us tonight. This is a very exciting project and one that is taking us into some new territory where we have to open our minds and be able to think about what could be. That's sometimes hard because most of us are just used to the way things have been, but that time is gone. We need to look at what we can be instead of what we've been. And I want to congratulate everyone who has done lots of hard work on this project and to the contributors from the community. When you're asked what you want, you tell us. And that's exactly the way we get things done. So enough from me. I encourage everyone tonight to let us know what you think, and we'll certainly take a look at everything. Every idea is a good idea, and we'll see what we can do to make them happen and become fruitful. Thank you.
Thanks, Frances. And again, we're so lucky to have you and have that type of inspiration and openness from our leadership. Again, I'd also like to thank everyone for being here tonight, for your participation these past few months, completing surveys and interviews, whether the resident survey or from an organization or business, or even when we tracked you down in the grocery store with masks on. So all of this information that we've gathered to this point has helped determine the 3 areas of focus for the workshop this evening. So we have a group of subject matter experts on the line here as well that I'll quickly introduce, and they're just going to give a little wave. So we have Karen Fisher, the Agriculture and Rural Economic Development Advisor for our project. And Karen comes to us from the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. We have Kathy McMunn, our CAO here at the township, as well as Tyson Myers, the Manager of Public Works for the township. We also have Joe Gallivan, very popular this week, Director of Planning and Economic Development from the County of Frontenac, as well as Allison Vanderveld from the County of Frontenac, representing Community Development, Planning and Economic Development. And Allison also has some really exciting tourism projects on the go. So they'll be waiting in the wings to answer your questions and provide any relevant updates that they might have. So throughout the workshop, please use the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen. If you just use your mouse and kind of awaken the bottom of the screen, you'll see the Q&A icon. Use this area to answer your questions. And we have some folks behind the scenes who are gathering those and will be addressing them accordingly closer to the end of the workshop. So now I'm thrilled to introduce Janice Fedorowic, the Principal of Wavefront Planning and Design. So Janice has really hit the ground running to get up to speed on all things Charlotte Lake, not only from the downtown revitalization research, but a variety of background studies and a lot of grassroots initiatives that can be built upon in this project. So with experience in landscape architecture and design based in the Niagara region, she'll be sharing some new concepts and fresh ideas again for our consideration. So thank you, Janice and Melina, who is behind the scenes, again, for all the hard work that you've put in at this point. And now over to you.
Okay, thanks, Adriana. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. And I must say that I'm just very impressed by the number of people and how invested everybody is in this program. And it's just very thrilling as a planner and a designer to be able to work with people that care a lot about their community. And I can tell that that is what is happening here. So it is just wonderful to work in that kind of environment. So what we're going to do, and I won't spend too long introducing, we're going to go through a PowerPoint and we're going to look at the different options we've been looking at for the last month. And we're going to have a bunch of different questions to ask you, and we're going to throw out some ideas. So all of these ideas we're going to throw out are preliminary ideas to just get your reaction, to see what you think about them. We're not going to make a decision on anything tonight, but we will ask your preferences on some ideas just so that we can get an idea of what some people prefer versus others. But we're very much at the beginning stage, and we'll show you where we are as soon as we start the PowerPoint. So just give me a minute, and I'm going to share my screen. And it's going to be, I just got to make sure I'm sharing the right screen because I've got two screens going right now.
The PowerPoint is up right now. Everything.
Oh, it's up already. Okay, perfect. I didn't realize it was up. Okay, that's what I was looking for. Okay, that's fine. So we've called our project Streetscape Public Spaces and Tourism because that is what we're looking at this point. And we're hoping to get your feedback on this. So what we're going to do is give you an update on what we've been doing for the last month. And we're hoping to get your feedback, and we will be answering questions. And as Adriana mentioned, if you type your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom, then we will be able to read them out at the end and answer them as best we can. So this is where we're at in the process. And this process started about 6 to 8 months ago, and we're just at the end of stage 2, where we are collecting and accessing the data. So we're generating ideas at this point that will take the program into stage 3, where developing the action plan and the implementation guidelines will happen. And then as soon as that's done, we're ready to start putting it into place. So as I mentioned, we're going to do the PowerPoint presentation. We're going to be doing some questions to fill out right on the screen. And at the end, we will be doing the Q&A. All questions are sent to Melina, and Melina sends them back to us at the end. And we will answer them as best that we can. So we're going to start with the first question, and Melina's going to bring this up on your screen. And it simply is, where do you live in Central Frontenac? And we'll give everybody about, I see it now, so we'll give everybody about 10 or 15 seconds to fill this out, and we'll be able to see the answers right away. So we just picked some of the major community names, and there might be lots of smaller areas. So if you can just pick one that's closest to where you're at, that will be great. Okay, Melina, let's see the results. Okay, so that's great. So we see that 61% are from Charlotte Lake, and we have a few from Para, nobody from Arden or Tichborne, and a few from Godfrey. So that's great. So we just have a clue where we're all from, and that's wonderful. So we'll close that down and we'll go on to the next. So this is what we're going to talk about tonight. And there's 3 areas that we're concentrating on. One is the government dock, one is the former school site, and the other one is the south entry. And at this point, we're not really looking at anything in between. Maybe that will come up at a different time, but we are directed by the town to look at these areas in particular. So we're concentrating all our efforts right in these areas. So the objectives is to look at the streetscape. And the first thing we always look at for streetscape is safety. How can we make it safe? Is there a safe route to get from one to the next? And is it an accessible route? And that's what we look at. Is it something that's inviting? Is it pleasant to walk along? Is it comforting? And that's something we look at as well. And how attractive is it? Does it compel you to walk down the street or sort of make you want to stay in your car and just drive on past? So that's sort of what we look at in terms of the streetscape, but safety always first. The public spaces we're looking at, we're trying to see how we can make them as accessible as we can to people of all abilities, and how to engage and animate the spaces to bring them alive, to make them more attractive, more compelling, something that a place where you want to spend your time. And can we make them memorable? Is it something that people will talk about now and for generations to come? And finally, for tourism. So a place like Sharbet Lake does rely on tourism for part of its economy, and that is especially in the summer months, bringing in tourists who are coming to use the beach government dock and just sort of bolster the facilities that are there as well. So how can we attract tourists? And on the other side of that, how do we avoid over tourism? Because that can be a real problem when all we have is cars everywhere, and it becomes very uncomfortable for the residents who live there. So it's something we have to think of in terms of routing and in terms of parking spaces, and where the facilities are located, and how they're spaced out. And how to improve the economy through tourism. What will attract people to the area, and what will keep them coming back again and again and again. So we're on to question 2, and we'd like you to name your favorite public space in downtown Sharbet Lake. So we've just got 5 mentioned right now. And for this question, we're just asking you to pick your top 1. So there might be some that are really close, but for this question, you got to make an instant decision and pick the top 1. Okay, so Melina, can we see the answer? Okay, so it looks like the beach is definitely the top place. Government dock is the least, and followed by the K&P trail. So 41% and 30%, well, it's somewhat close. Those are definitely the top, followed by the Railway Heritage Park and the Causeway. So that's kind of what we expected, to tell you the truth, just from us, from the outside looking in as to what is there. So I'm not entirely surprised by this, but it's nice to know what the people that live here, the residents, to know exactly how you feel. So that is great to know. Okay, we'll go on to the next. So question 3. What is the most important item to improve in the streetscape? So we're asking you if you can pick up to 3 answers. You can pick 1, 2, or 3. And this will start to give us a priority for what people think is important in the space. So I just want to explain what is meant by banners. And banners are when we see attractive signs that are attached to different poles. And we often on a streetscape will see a whole line of them that are maybe is announcing the name of the village or maybe the name of a festival. And we'll see these poles about the same distance as we'll see light poles. And the banner will be on top of it. And that's what's meant by banners. The other things I think are very self-explanatory. Wayfinding being signage, and but I did want to explain banners just to make that clear. Okay, so let's see what the results are. Very interesting. Okay, so definitely the top one that we have here are attractive building fronts. That's got 63%. And I see that the next one beside that are more trees. So those are the top two that are most important to everybody. And followed closely by planters and hanging baskets and lighting, both at 41%. So that's very clear as to the sorts of things that people are looking for to try to improve the streetscape. So this is great to know, really, really good to know. So just looking that shade is probably the least one at 7%. The next smallest one would be the banners at 15%. Okay, wonderful. That's great to know. And that definitely gives us guidance in how to go forward and suggestions that we can make based on those opinions. And just so I can just mention that these same questions will be posted on the town website for the next week. For anybody that you know that couldn't make it to tonight's meeting, if you could just tell it to your friends and family. If they weren't able to make it, they can go on the town website and they can fill out the same questions that we're asking you tonight, so that we get the more answers we have, the better it will be, and we'll know that it is the opinion of the majority of people in Charlotte Lake. So on to the next. Number 4, what new tourist attractions would you like to see in Charlotte Lake? So we're asking you again to pick up to 3. You don't have to pick 3 if there's only one that is of interest to you. We put down a whole bunch of ones, and unfortunately on these quizzes online, we can't put something for other, but we will be able to put that, we can do that on the website, and we will find a way to allow you to do that through the web. But unfortunately, through this medium that we have, which is the PowerPoint presentation and the Zoom, we don't have a space for others. Okay, so let's see what the results are.
I'm just letting a few more answers come in.
Okay, thanks, Melina. That's great that you can keep track of that. Yeah, no rush. Yeah, it's better to get the answers and wait and make sure everybody's had a chance. Okay, very interesting. So we see that the most popular of tourist attractions that people can think of to attract people to Charlotte Lake is the rentals. So renting bikes and ATVs, skis and snowshoes and the like. And so, yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense because of the trails that are in Charlotte Lake and the opportunities that we have with watercraft as well, and just coming around, just traveling around in this beautiful area on as many different modes of travel as possible would be a great addition. So we have 50%, and I see at 42%, I see both waterside dining and splash pad and adventure playground. So those are things that are important. And the next one down, 36%, I see is the artisan and the culinary market. So I am aware of the fact that there are artisan communities and culinary activities, and it seems to me from what I've heard to be a growing tourism business that is growing in this area. So that would definitely be something that we should have a look at. How can we accommodate this, and where can we accommodate this in Charlotte Lake? Okay, so we'll move on to the next. Okay, so now we're going to talk about our 3 areas. So we're going to go to each one in detail, and we'll be asking some questions as we go through, and we'll be showing you some preliminary design ideas we have. And they're not set in stone, as I mentioned, but they're just ideas at this point. So the government dock area, that's where we'll start. We have a number of opportunities here. Number one on my list is the railway park, which I think is really well done. Just the amount of signage and the quality of information is done really well, and just the different activities that are there are wonderful. We have the dock itself, just giving access to the water visually, and also you could go up and put your toe in, although I'm told that this is not an area for swimming. We have the two trails, and they meet here right at the center of the government dock area. We have the parkette that looks like it's been there for quite some time, and there are some wonderful views down into the area from Elizabeth Street as well, and coming both ways, we have some wonderful views of this area. But there are some challenges, and probably the principal one that most people that we've spoken to have identified is that we have the parking area and the roads are all mixed together. It's very undefined. It's hard to know where to park, where to drive, and where anything is. And so usually when there's that kind of lack of definition, but it's often a safety issue too, because when you add pedestrians to this area and there are people walking through because the trails are coming through, then it could be something that could be a safety issue and could receive better treatment. There definitely is a lack of signage pointing to all the wonderful activities that are here in Charlotte Lake. And signage is something that we will be recommending on where to put signage and what should be on the signs. There's a little bit of seating there. That one bench, I sat on that bench. It was a great bench to sit on, but there could be more. Lighting seems to end partway along the K&P trail, and lighting could be extended through this area. For me, when I look at it, I can see that there definitely could be a lack of shade, except for shade that is there from trees. But it seems, at least near the Railway Museum, it's quite open. And because everything is a little bit disjointed and not well defined, there's not really a strong sense of place, and we think that we can improve upon that. So I want to ask, for this area, which we are calling a trailhead because it has been identified as a trailhead by the county and a number of different organizations, what is the most important feature for this area that we are calling a trailhead? So again, we're asking you to pick up to 3, no obligation to pick 3. You could pick 1 or 2 or 3, whichever is best for you. And we just put a couple of images down of what a couple of shade structures could look like. The one in the center, I will say that we quickly put that together and we tried to mimic the shape of the old station that used to be near the railway park and is now just a flat area now. But we looked at the old historic photograph and we thought, how can we interpret that shape, but still have it be an open air type of pavilion that would allow shade structures and a public washroom. So that was just one idea that we had. So let's see what the answers are. Okay, so very strongly, we can see that everybody would like to have public washrooms in this area. So that will be something definitely that we will look at and to see where we could locate that. And there are a number of locations, but we do have to look at constraints as well. And that's in terms of topography and access so that we can make sure that we have all abilities will be able to access the public washrooms. Okay, and I also see at 47% an information kiosk is something that people would really like. And this is followed by, okay, also 50% parking, so better parking. So these are things that we as designers were also looking at, because when we look at it, these are definitely things that we also agree could definitely be improved in these areas. Okay, so we'll go on to the next. And another question we have is, what activities would you like to see around the shoreline? So we have an opportunity where right now it is basically used for parking and the boat launch, but we feel that there is some space there that we could use, and how could we use that space? So we've shown a little sketch that we did, which is the second drawing or the second image on this slide of a small dock could look like with seating that is right next to the actual government dock. And this would be something that would still be on the shoreline, but it would still give the appearance of being near a dock. And above that, we have an image of kayak and canoe rentals, a typical shack type of thing that could be included in this area. Okay, so we've also asked you to pick up to 3. So let's see the results. Okay, we see a very strong preference again for canoe, kayak, paddleboard, or sailboat rentals, 74%. By finished shoreline, for example, a boardwalk style. So to improve it in a way similar to what we see in that drawing, or another way, but to formalize it and just have it be more attractive looking. And the third one, and then, okay, so those two are very strong. And then we drop right down to 32% for the next one, which is expanded dock for more or larger boats. So that's very interesting to know that are the strongest. So we'll definitely keep that in mind as we go through this design process and develop the designs further. Okay, on to the next. Okay, so I just want to point out to you the area that we're looking at in particular. I think most people are very familiar with it, but I'll just point it out very quickly so that you are oriented to this map and to understand where everything is on the map. So this is where the boat launch dock is located, and the shoreline is there. The KMP trail starts and ends in these locations. The Trans-Canada Trail comes through here and ends. The Railway Heritage Park is in this general location. We have the parkette that's on the corner near the municipal office. And this is what is currently we have for parking in the area. So VP stands for viewpoint. So there's a really good viewpoint from here, as well as from both ways along Elizabeth Street. And just to know that this is what we are calling the trailhead, is this whole area is, we're calling it a trailhead because it's looking at parking, it's giving out information, and hopefully giving out comfort to people in terms of having perhaps shade, perhaps the public washroom, and who knows, maybe even food trucks or vending machines or some other water dispensers, some other comfort items that people traveling along either by bike, by car, by ATV, walking could enjoy. So now I'm going to just open a 3D sketch of this and we'll have a look at this area. So this is not the government docks. I'm going to see, I might not be able to move as well because it doesn't move as well during Zoom. So unfortunately, it's not moving for me. So I might just have to wait a minute because sometimes it's a bit temperamental, but obviously what we're looking at is the beach area. And you can see the beach is down here, and we've got the Lions Pavilion here. We have the shade structure here and the public washroom here. And let's see if I can move. No, I'm not able to move. So I'm going to let this rest, and I'm going to go back to our presentation. I apologize. I don't know why this isn't moving. It was moving 5 minutes ago. So I don't know why. So I'll try to get that figured out. But in the meantime, we could go back to our PowerPoint. And so I just want to show you what I would show you in the 3D sketch. This is what I would have shown you, but I can only show you this way in a 2D sketch. So the option that we're looking at here is what happens if we keep the K&P trail where it is, and we keep the Trans-Canada Trail where it is, and we don't change that at all, but we make a better connection for the K&P Trail from one side to the other. So as a group, along with the town, we had a discussion on whether we should put the trail over on this side or whether it is better and safer to put it on this side. And we agreed as a group that the trail would be much better on this side because it would offer a safer crossing. There would be less conflict with ATVs that are coming down and using here and coming back up again, because there would be less crossings for pedestrians to go through there. So this is what we're showing, is that we would make a connection between where the trail ends up here near the grocery store. We would bring it down and we would bring it across so that it lines up again through here. So we're recognizing that this area here, right beside the railway park, this is where we could put a shade structure, a water dispenser, or public washrooms, that would be a really good location for there. And that it would be a nice idea to develop this area as some sort of seating, because this is where the trails meet. So the trail would come up here and it would actually join just to the side, but then this would be a nice public area here. And in this option, we're showing that a canoe rental could be up at the top here. And we would formalize the streetscape and make it look more like a road instead of the way it is, which is all of this area here is currently just all open, but we would make it into a street. And the other thing we are suggesting is that we believe that we can extend the parking down this way. So right now we have the new parking lot, which is right here across from the municipal office. And we believe that by leaving this trail here, we have enough space to at least get a one-way road down here with angled parking down here. So we can increase the parking going through here, and it would connect back up back to Elizabeth Street down here. So this is one location that we're showing. And again, the trails are basically staying the same. And the next one I will show you, the trails will be different. So in this one, we're showing that the Trans-Canada Trail comes up here. And instead of going across, we change the alignment so that it comes up right beside the railway park. So this would bring people along Trans-Canada Trail all the way in front of the railway park and back up. And by doing this, it would give us a larger space here. So we would have a larger public space for any washrooms or any information kiosk, any shade structure or seating. It would be a much larger area. And here we're showing if we don't do canoe rentals, we could make this into some sort of seating or garden area, because again, we're trying to formalize this and make this into a roadway. And then the parking that used to be here, we're pushing it all into this area over here. So we're reducing the parking and we're formalizing it and putting it over in this location. And the third one I'll show you is that the Trans-Canada Trail, instead of coming up here and connecting here, it's going to come up and connect on this side over here. So what this does is this gives us the largest area here, and that allows us to double the amount of parking that we could have in this space. And just knowing that parking is one of the biggest concerns, I think it was, I believe 91% or a high number like that. This option here, by moving the trail here, would maximize the amount of parking that we could put in this area the most. Definitely, that's the benefit of this option. It also gives us the largest space in here to do some kind of trail center, public washrooms, and seating. And we're just noting on here that there could be a boardwalk along here, and showing in this option that we also see another opportunity to this parkette that's already here to extend it down so that it makes a connection all the way through here. So that's something that we're also looking at, is to try to increase the amount of green space here, and the parking moves to this location here. So those are the three options. And now I'll go to the next slide. And here's a picture of each of those options that I just looked at and I told you about. So we're going to ask the question, which of these ones do you prefer? Do you prefer option 1, where the trail alignment stayed exactly where it is? Option 2, where it comes up on the left side of the Railway Heritage Park? Or option 3, where the trail comes up on the right side of the Rail Heritage Park? So we'll just give you a minute to think about it. Well, not a minute, 15 seconds. And then we'll have a look. And again, these are preliminary ideas. It's what we're working with, and you know, it's definitely something that we will continue to develop. But it just helps us at this point to know what your opinion is, and it will help us as designers to come up with the best solution that we can for you. Okay, so here we have the answer, and it looks like option 3 is definitely much more favored by everybody at 66%. And I suspect probably because we're able to get the most parking in that area is likely the reason, but unfortunately, you know, maybe we can hear about that in the Q&A at the end, but I suspect that's probably it. And it also opens up the space that we have there so we can put even more and better facilities in that area. Okay, that's great. So this brings us to the end of area 1. And I'm going to ask Alina to close that down, if you can, so that I can go back. Okay, and that's area 1. Okay, how are we for time? Okay, so we're pretty good for time. I'm trying to finish this up by 7 o'clock so that we have lots of time for your questions. This one is area 2, and this is the south entry. So we have the public beach that has, as we see here, we see the playground, and we have a number of different shade structures and buildings in there. We have the flagpoles, and we have nearby, we have the parking near there, and some lovely, lovely views from here. There is a public washroom, I'm told by everybody I've communicated with, that it's definitely in need of upgrade or replacement. We have the Lions gazebo that is there, and we have another shade structure there as well. We have the shops that are nearby. By shops, we mean the restaurant, and then up on the hill, we have the Cardinal Cafe and other businesses up there, and beautiful lake views from here too, and the causeway being right nearby with that very iconic Canada Canada bench, Canada flag bench, I guess you could call it. Again, we have the same issue here with undefined roads and trails and parking, which makes it a bit dangerous. We have a lack of signage in this area as well. Seating is definitely limited in this area. There could be more formal seating. Lighting is an issue. And again, because it's not well defined in some places, we think we could do a better job of making a stronger sense of place by defining the areas in a better way than we are right now. So let's go on to the first question. You can see on your right, I'll explain what that is this is something that's actually near where I'm from, which is near Niagara. And this is an activity that's done on a seasonal basis. All of these are filled with air. So they're put up in the summer, they're taken down in the summer. But it is a water-based activity that you can do that is quite fun. Like this is something that's actually quite large. You know, it's way too large for small kids, but you could get it in different activities. So the question, what are your favorite new features for the South Entry? I'm picking up to 3. And I just wanted to explain that one on the right-hand side. So Melina, if you can bring up the answers as soon as we've got everybody, as soon as everybody's given us an answer, that would be great. And there could be, you know, we just picked 5 different activity or 7 different activities, and we could do more. So we see here a strong preference for a new public washroom, that's probably the principal one that everybody is identifying. I see here then at 43%, we have the rentals, the canoe and kayak rentals here as well. And followed by the welcome sign along Highway 38, that's something that everybody feels would be a really good addition to the South Entry area. And, you know, these are, as designers, again, these are things that we identified ourselves. So I'm very, you know, it makes a lot of sense to me that you are also identifying these as something that is very important to you. So let's go on to the next. Okay, so we have the area 2. This is the South Entry. This is what we're talking about as a gateway, and it would be in this area that we would look at doing some kind of signage feature in this area, not only sort of a welcome to Sharbeth Lake type of identity sign, but we would also be looking at wayfinding signs. So, you know, beach this way, railway museum this way, you know, whatever we decide that we want to point to, we would start to introduce the ideas in this area so people know what is coming up. We're just pointing down to the Canada bench, just the medical center is there, and that's where the Maple restaurant is, just so you're familiar with the map. That's the beach park. That's the KMP trail, and again, it comes out, it sort of shares the road and this big area that's undefined here, and picks up again down here. This is the South Entry, the major car entry into this place. So this is a very important point. And we have the Cardinal Cafe that everybody has told me is one of the community focal points. And, you know, definitely a place where people like to go, meet and greet. And so, it's definitely, as somebody that just visited there just recently, I mean, it's definitely a very attractive building and one that really stands out and is very inviting. So I can definitely see it as an asset, both for the community and for tourism, definitely. So we have a viewpoint that goes to the lake just across from the Cardinal Cafe. And this is where the current parking is. We know that there is some parking in front of the Maples, but that is for the private use of that building. So we haven't put that in, but this is the parking that is currently used for most of this area. So we have a lot of constraints. And I'm going to try just again, let's see if I can bring up the SketchUp and see if I can get the 3D to work. Yeah, I don't know. It is frozen. And unfortunately, I can't go out and bring it back in at the same time as doing this presentation because there's only one of me. So I do apologize for that. But at least we can look at this one and explain it. So you won't be able to see me draw on it. But we know that the KMP trail comes down this corridor and stops in this very undefined area right here. And then people walk along the road till they get to here through the parking lot and they pick up again here. So what we are hoping to do with this area is to do a formalized trail that makes a connection between here and here. And this is something that we talked about with all of the town staff. We had a meeting, we discussed it, and we believe that the safest option for that would be to have a crossing across here and have it be on this side of the road. And it would, first of all, this trail extension would come up right along the road and we would extend it all the way out to here. And eventually people would cross the road and they could continue their journey up to the top here along the sidewalk that is there. So to try to make this connection all the way through here, that is what we hope to do, is to make that connection on that side. Now, how do we connect up to here? So what we would suggest to do is to rework this parking lot so that it actually aligns up with this parking lot. So I can show you in a sketch on the next slide what that looks like, but we'll try to make those line up so that we can actually do another crossing here if we like, and then we bring the trail right on this side of the parking and we connect it back up here. So that means that pedestrians would, from this side, they would come here, they would go along this side, do a crossing, continue along the trail on this side, do another crossing, and then they're through there. So that's how we are able to separate safely pedestrian traffic from the rest of the traffic. If you're on an ATV, you would do what you already do, which is to come along the trail here, continue through the parking lot, go along the road through this area, and then right back up along the trail, the same as what you always do. But what we're hoping is to separate out the pedestrians so that it can be a safer way to travel from one to the next. So I'm going to show you, go back to the PowerPoint now, and we'll go to the next slide. So just to show you what that looks like when we're looking at this map. So if we're continuing this connection and we're bringing it out on this side, we would connect it all the way up to Road 38, and we would cross the road potentially down here or potentially further up here, and we would bring the trail back down through here and connect up again. So that's that idea. We also are looking at, can we expand the parking that is currently here? So the parking right here ends about here, and we think we have an opportunity to try to increase the parking on this side here. And we would also try to formalize this as a road section, and then we would have parallel parking that would be in its own lane right along here. So that's how we would deal with more parking and to separate the traffic and to make it a safer, more defined roadway. So another thing I want to point out is that we're looking at 2 locations for potential waterfront dining. We're not saying exactly what the waterfront dining is right now. It could be food trucks, it could be something more than that. But it is something that just who we've spoken to so far have identified as something that is important. So we're looking at perhaps that this being one potential location. I'll show you another one in the next slide. And then just in terms of wayfinding up in this area, we would have a gateway sign down here and another wayfinding sign up here. It could either be on this side, on the hotel property. That's one idea we're looking at. And I'll show you another option, which is on the Cardinal Cafe in the next slide. Another important area we're looking at is this area here. And this is right beside the utility building. So as you know, it has a wonderful view down Matthew Street towards the lake. And it's something that potentially we could put on some picnic tables or seating. And of course, we would have to put up some safety railings because there is quite a steep slope there. But it could be something, it could be a small community space in that area, and it is in public ownership. So that is something that we're definitely looking at as a community amenity space. So I'll go on to the next one. This is option 1. Option 2 is to have the waterfront dining down in this location here, as opposed to up where it was, near the extended parking down here. And then for the wayfinding, instead of having it at the Cardinal Cafe, at the hotel, we would put it on the side of the Cardinal Cafe on this side. And we would hope that it would service both cars and pedestrians that are coming from both directions on Highway 38. And it would lead people into the town towards the businesses and to try to experience everything that Sherbet Lake has to offer. So I'm going to go to the next slide. And now I'm going to ask you, of these 2 different ones, which of these options do you prefer? So option 1 is that the waterfront dining is at the top of the park, and also the wayfinding sign is towards the hotel. And option 2 is that the waterfront dining is at the bottom of the park with the wayfinding sign over by the Cardinal Cafe. So those are the 2 options that we're asking for. And do realize that we have a few things together in the same question, that, you know, there might be one preference you have in one and not the other, and vice versa, but we just hope that you pick the option that most strongly represents what is important to you. So we're looking for the answers, and it looks like people prefer option 2 the most, which is to put the waterfront dining down towards the bottom. And yeah, I think that's a good location for it as well, because it is in a more remote location compared to housing that is nearby. And with an expanded parking lot, it definitely is something that could work in that location. In terms of the sign, if it is in front of the Cardinal Cafe building, that is an icon in itself, then it's a very good location to have attractive signage, and something that would probably be a very attractive addition to the community in that location. Okay, so that brings us to the end of area 2. And now we'll move on to area 3. And area 3 is the former school site. So we note that this is a large and open area that is miraculously and wonderfully in public ownership, meaning that the town has a great opportunity to do something with a very large space right at the middle of town. And it's a really great opportunity to do something with this area. There's high visibility. So if there was anything that's developed on here will be highly visible from Highway 38. So something to keep in mind. And from that area, there are views during the winter time, definitely to the Charlotte Lake on the east side. And because we do have the rock outcrops that is elevating the topography in that location. So the challenge on the site is that we have been directed at this point to look at 3 different uses for this site. And the challenge will be to try to balance the best use for the site. So we're going to ask a few questions before we go to that. So for question 10, what activity do you most want to see on the former school site? So some of these are park related, some of them are tourism related, and one of them is senior housing, and that's a land use that was brought up to us from the very beginning. That it's something that the community recognized was very important. So we are definitely including that as one of the options in this mix, since it already was something that was favored. I just want to mention that all of these that we put on here, all of these are derived from looking at the questions and answers that you've already answered over the last 4 to 6 months, and looking at your answers and bringing in the most popular of those answers. And that's what we see in front of us here. So it's sort of reconfirming again that if you had to pick any one of these and up to 3, what would be your preference from all of these options? So if we can have the results, that'll be great. Okay, so we see that senior housing is definitely the most important, and it is at 61%. And that is followed by an artisan and culinary outdoor market at 39%. And right behind that is retail and some sort of a tourist attraction. We're not saying what it would be, but something that would attract tourists into the area. Okay, so that's very good to know. And we will now look at, I'm not going to look at the SketchUp because I believe that it probably is still frozen. So I'll go straight to the plan views. So this is a former school site. And just to get you oriented, here is the lake down here and the corner of Robert and Highway 38. These are the current entry points that we have to the site. And this is where the strong viewpoint is up on this corner and towards the lake as well. And just noting that this is the rock outcrop. In this picture that you see here, that's this corner here. And we're looking at that as a potential opportunity to develop that as a community space, that we believe that we could cut into that space and actually use it as a community space that's down here at the level of the roads that it is adjacent to. Everything else that is elevated high enough that you don't have any relationship to the streetscape. But this is an opportunity where you could have public space where you do have a relationship to the streetscape. And that's exactly the location right here. And that this is the photo of that place right there. Okay, so here's option 1. And we've looked at housing. We've looked at a park and a communal septic. I know you are all familiar with the communal septic use of the site, that's something that has been talked about, I believe, over the last year, and something that we're looking at, that this site has been targeted as one to put that use on, and that it can be combined with a park use, because the communal septic on top of that, likely the best use for that is just open space, grassy field, And that is very conducive to park, picnic tables, and the like. So we're looking at seniors housing, we're looking at park and communal space. And if we were going to do a tourist attraction, where would that be located? So in this option, we're showing the seniors housing over here, and it's relating to the roadway and the homes that are right across from it on the area that is currently flat and has the basketball courts on it. The parkette that I mentioned that would be right at the corner, would be right in this space. The rock outcrop, we can't do too much on that because of it being something that has safety issues, and the only way you can do that is by putting up a fence all the way along it. And I know there is a current fence there because of the former use of the school site, but we'd like to see what we can do to not necessarily have the fence in that location, but we would still have it be a safe place. If we're going to have a tourist attraction, we are thinking that it could be something, if it was located in here, and it would be something like a lookout, something that would give you height in some way, then it is something that would be highly visible for everybody around. That says 58, should say 38, I believe. And everybody would see it. Anything that we do, and it could be something that puts Charlotte Lake on the map for tourism. This is a great site for whatever we do there. It could be a tree house, it could be a lookout, it could be, you know, part of an artisan market village. Whatever is put there will be highly visible in that location and could really put Charlotte Lake on the map. So we have the senior housing here. We have an area for parking, because if we have a tourist attraction, we need parking. And this would also serve as overflow parking for the entire Charlotte Lake. And we have the parking space. This is option 1. Option 2 would be to put more housing, and that's something that people identified as important. Put more housing and continue it all the way along Garrett Street. Here we have the grade. This goes all the way down here. So if we have housing here, the driveway would have to be from the back. And here we couldn't do it at the front because it would be too steep. So we would have to have a driveway through here. In this option, we are keeping the idea of a tourist attraction still with parking. And we still have a park and communal septic, but they are smaller, because both of these are smaller because we have more housing. So that is option 2. And option 3 would be to have this whole area be housing, that this be the primary use of this space. We would no longer have any space left for tourist attractions, so that would be gone. We could still have this area be the parkette that's down at the level of this intersection here. We could definitely still have that. And then any park space and the communal servicing would be right here where currently the basketball court is. So these are 3 options. There's likely many more, but we're starting with 3 to start the conversation and to start to get the feedback. So I'll go to the next slide, and we are asking the question now: which of these design options do you prefer? Number 1 had the parking to the on the former basketball court. Number 2 has extended parking all the way along Garrett Street, and number 3 has parking in a cluster over the former school site where the building was, and eliminates the idea of tourism and parking in that area. So these are just 3 options, and we would definitely like to know your opinion on this. So Melina, when we have everybody voted, if you can bring it up, then that would be great. Okay, so we're very interesting. So we don't have any strong preference on this. So that's great. That means that we will continue with all of these ideas at this point and develop them further and see what we can do, because there's merit in all of them. That's what I'm hearing from this. There's merit in all of them, and we'll have to develop the ideas further. So but the small lead is for option 3, is to have the cluster of housing, but very close behind that is option 1, which is to have the least amount of housing. So very interesting, and something, because it's very divided between the 3, I'm sure that we will continue this discussion to try to see what the preference is, if it does swing one way or the other, once we get into more details in terms of what the options are and what the actual use of the site could be. Okay, so that brings us close to the end of our presentation. I'll go on to the next slide. And just what are the next steps? So after this whole evening, we've had our Q&A, and what happens tomorrow? So we're going to ask if you can invite your friends and relatives to fill in the online survey if they didn't get a chance to be here tonight. And to look for updates on this on the town website. We have the website address there, the URL. And when we do come out with our report, it will be going out to you, the residents, so that you can give us comments on the report, and that will inform the next step, which is stage 3, which is to come up with the action plan that puts this all together and prioritizes the choices into a clear direction for action. So just wanted to say thank you for listening to me for the last hour and 10 minutes. And what we'll do is I'll turn it back over to Adriana, and she will open up the Q&A period, and we will start to answer your questions.
Amazing. Thanks, Janice. That was inspiring, although I've seen it a few times already. I learn something new every time and get a new perspective. And I think, again, it's just so refreshing to have a fresh set of eyes. Again, there's still a lot to know and a lot of nooks and crannies, but you've really jumped right in a short amount of time. And I'll mention that Janice, once we kind of decided we were going to work together, hopped in her car and headed right down just before the stay-at-home order. So she has been here, but again, a pretty quick visit. So we can't wait to have her back as well. So I'm going to look over to the Q&A questions. I have intermittently answered, hopefully trying to help people out along the way. So we're going to just try to find the best way to organize this here. Okay, so I'll just, unless Melina, you wanted to jump in, or Janice, you wanted to jump in, I might just start at the top. And at any point, our panelists can turn their videos back on and answer as they see fit if I don't direct it right at you. Okay, so we have a question, which would have been from the Area 1, the government docs. Do these two models, RE, the public dock, take out the community garden? So Janice probably isn't aware of the community garden that sits between some of the township parking, in between that area, our new bike lane, and the Heritage Railway Park. So again, these are our concepts at this point. So we certainly wouldn't, go undoing any of the gardening that I actually saw going on today to put in parking. Again, these are concepts. So we would certainly look to maintain gardens and any type of really lively features in this process. So I don't know if anyone else wants to speak to that, but I'll let you take over if you do.
Yeah, I just want to mention along those lines is that if we do understand that parking is a priority and it does encroach upon the community garden, then the plan would be to move that to another place. So it wouldn't be lost, it would be moved. That's what I see would be the compromise. Yeah.
Great. All right, I'll move on to another question here. Thanks, Melina. Will the beach be improved? Little kids can't dig in the sand because there isn't any sand. So I think we kind of got to that point later on, looking at the beach, and that's a really great point to make about sand.
Okay, so I just will comment that improving the quality of the sand wasn't really something that we as designers were looking at as part of our exercise, but I definitely see that that is an important issue just because it would make the entire area more attractive if there was more sand. So with sand, just what I know about that, sand collects and moves. Sand is constantly moving every year, and it moves with wave action, and it moves with rising and lowering water levels. So usually if it's something where we're improving a beach, we're also looking at likely putting in something like rock outcrops, because rock outcrops tends to trap sand and keep it in place. And if we were going to do something,
Oops.
Adrienne, would you like
Are
me
we
to
all
speak now?
frozen?
Oh, I'm back.
Good. Would you like me to sort of talk a little bit about the about sand? I know in other years we have brought in sand as well for the beach for that same comment that Janice has made, because yes, with the action of the water, it does seem to take it out. When we have to when we look at putting sand in, and that certainly is an option, is that we have to get approval from the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority before we can even put any in. So.
Good to know.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Kathy. All righty. So just a few, and not everything's a question, but some really great comments that, again, we're here to continue to gather this information. So we have a comment regarding streetscaping in town, to please keep in mind the disabled or accessible challenges that are facing some members of the community in regard to seating. And of course, that is a priority as well. And we will, in our prioritizing and planning phase, be engaging with different accessibility committees and different organizations and businesses to keep kind of moving accessibility opportunities forward. Okay, another kind of update, and this has been coming up in kind of feedback coming before the workshop, which is really great. We don't seem to have a plan for tree succession. On hot summer days, people do want the shade trees. And yeah, I think, we all know that's quite important, and we're starting to see different priorities of that. And we've been recently looped in with a committee that has done a lot of planning actually for adding trees and restoring trees. So even if that didn't kind of come out as a really top percentage in some of these rankings, we do have a lot of other, again, research and considerations that are going into the overall plan. And I love trees, so I'm with you on that one. We have a question. Are we certain that the railway is not coming through this area? I'm going to open that up to people my senior. I don't have any official updates about the railway. Kathy, is that you or is
Sure.
that Joe?
I
Okay.
can, or even the mayor can even speak to that if as well, is that as a staff and certainly in council, we have not had any other further updates yet. So we're not 100% sure what is actually taking place. And Mayor Smith can certainly say any further words on it.
No, I think that's exactly where we're at. The last we talked to Via Rail seriously was 2 to 3 years ago. So we're waiting for them to contact us again to see what if their plan remains the same or if it has changed.
Thanks, Mayor Francis. Yeah, and I'm also going to invite all the panelists, if they'd like to kind of join the conversation, feel free to pop back up if your internet permits. I think we lost our lovely host, Janice, or she just needed to go get some water, which she quite deserves. So yeah, we'll try to keep this as an open forum as possible. So I'm just going to move down the list here. Again, kind of an open discussion here. How do we discourage people driving their vehicles and trailers, parking by the docks, both boats and ATVs? For example, the trailhead in Verona is full of vehicles. If you expand the parking on Elizabeth Streets, all tourists will see is a parking lot. Will the gardens become parking lots? So kind of bringing back what Janice mentioned about parking in the gardens before, if it's deemed that, you know, a certain area is the one and only opportunity for some extended parking, we would be certain to find a new home for the gardens and help to get those set back up. But I think, you know, that would be one of our lowest priorities, is to uproot anything like that. But again, we'll continue to be engaging the community in these discussions. But if anyone else has anything they wanted to add to that, feel free to jump in.
I think I would just add that we have to remember we have a lot of islands and people bring their boats and park their cars and trailers and go off to their islands. And we need to try to accommodate trucks and trailers as best we can. So when we lay out our parking, I think we need to keep that in mind. I don't think it's impossible, but I think the parking spaces need to be allocated differently.
Yeah, and I think, again, Janice brings such a fresh perspective and ideas that, you know, we just don't see because we're kind of here day to day. All righty. Scrolling through, again, thanks everyone for jumping in and adding comments while also doing polls and following along. Just comments about public change rooms at the beach. Again, I think those are great pieces of feedback we can add into considerations. More seating as well. Again, we're going to try and keep us well informed about any types of developments with the train in our planning, but we're still going to move ahead. And what's great about the revitalization is it's a long-term process. So, you know, we don't really know when something like that might happen, but we can focus on shorter-term wins, things that can happen kind of midway, and also opportunities that are much more of a long-term project. Oh, Janice is back. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, just my internet cut out. So yeah, sorry about that.
It keeps your blood moving, doesn't it? It keeps your heart pumping. Yeah. Okay, so I think I'm going to move over to Tyson. You can answer some of these questions about safety, pedestrian crossings. You can see those questions, okay?
Thanks, Adriana. Yeah.
Okay, great.
The first one I can see was about the south entry. Connecting to the sidewalk would require perhaps a three-way stop. Pedestrian crossing, how would safety be addressed as sight lines crossing to the beach from a sidewalk are limited? I can, in a township, these are big changes for a small township like Central Frontenac. So the changes, we need to make changes, we need to strategize to make changes incrementally, and we need to make realistic changes. So one big thing that I see that needs to change in the village is slowing down traffic on 38, but we need to do it in a way that is affordable, adaptable, and sustainable. So one of my favorite visions of Highway 38 is like a raised median down the middle with some trees and planters in the middle, and that's a method of lane narrowing. So, but there's tons of options out there. And I said it a minute ago, incrementally is the way to do it. We've already started by doing our own pedestrian crosswalks up at the seniors housing at the top end of the village at 38. That's inside the downtown core. And it's something we can work off of. And you go through, there's tons of different methods of traffic calming. And I think that's a big thing for us, getting people slowed down to come down into that downtown. There's traffic circles, speed bumps, stop signs, curb extensions, and even just increased street parking. All that stuff calms traffic and gets people slowed down so they can see the signs and see the wayfinding and get down into these cool spots in our village.
Does anyone else on the panel have anything they'd like to add? You're okay for now? All right. Well, we still got lots of questions ahead of us, so you're going to have your moment, don't you worry. All right, so I'm popping back up here. A few folks weren't able to get their answers in on the polls on time, so they've shared with us some other ideas. And I believe this is in reference to the former school site. That skating would be great. While we need seniors housing, there may be other locations as well. There are other options like a community center for locals rather than a tourist attraction, and providing a variety of sports and activities for community residents, which are sorely lacking in the area. So I think we know that there's a lot of potential for the former school site. There's other notes about pickleball at the former school site. Pickleball is taking over, which is really exciting. So I think I might, loop in Joe at this moment and Kathy as well, just to kind of talk about different, the status of different updates and again, your take on opportunities for the school site.
Okay, I guess maybe I can speak first, Joe Gallivan, only to let the public know that the township recently received a grant from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to do an engineering study on the site, to do a feasibility study to consider if the township was able to install communal services on that property, what would that mean? What kind of density could go on the site? Uses aside, just what could feasibly happen, pardon me. And I think you saw in the sketch tonight from Janice, if you install a communal septic system, you can actually use a park space on top of it. So there's some uses available there as well. As part of that study that's going to happen this summer and fall, we're actually going to go back out to the public one more time. Once we've determined what the density could be on the site, we want to hear from the public on what is the best use for the site. But I don't want to get into that tonight. I want to leave it with the vision that you put in front of everybody tonight, and I'll just stop there. Thank you, Adriana.
And I think Joe, and I think Joe pretty well has certainly captured it. Until we kind of have an idea of what the scope is, or how much with the communal servicing as to how many units we can put on that, there are other opportunities certainly for other activities on that site as well. So, but we certainly will be looking at that, and we'll keep everybody posted.
Thanks to you both. I know there are a lot of moving parts. And again, Janice has done a great job of adding some variety. I know that people are also looking for multi-use opportunities for green space, for recreation, but of course there are a lot of different factors to consider before anything can be finalized. So again, a lot of quick learning on Janice's part. And so thanks to everyone for kind of helping bring her up to speed on the ins and outs of that to the best of all of our abilities at this point. So,
Adriana, just one comment that I would like to make.
Oh, sorry, Fran, go ahead.
That's okay, is that seniors housing, one of the criteria that we've always looked at over the years and could never get involved is because we needed to have a spot where a senior could walk to services. And unfortunately, we never had a space that would be suitable for that to happen. So when we bought the school property, seniors housing was foremost on our mind. It was the last lot in the village where a senior could actually live and walk to the services. So it's very important. Location.
Yeah, and I mean, you bring up another great opportunity or something to celebrate where we weren't this time last year, which is why we've had these kind of 3 focus areas as opposed to focusing on road infrastructure and sidewalks. So we have amazing now total volume of new sidewalks to kind of help facilitate that. So it's exciting to be able to kind of look past those foundational elements now and continue to build on top of them. So yeah, we have a lot of different feedback again that we're going to continue to put into our overall recommendations in terms of uses for that space. I'm just scrolling through some of the questions here. Again, focusing on keeping as many trees as possible and adding more. Sorry, everyone, I'm just kind of scrolling through here.
Adriana, can I point one out? I think there's an interesting question here for Janice, probably.
Okay.
Where is the parking proposed for the seniors housing? So would there be like underground parking under those structures, or is that part of the parking that was identified on that site? What's the idea there, Janice?
Thank you. So just when I was just doing that little sketch, I was thinking of it as bungalows. So each one would have a driveway with at least a single car garage. And so there would be parking right on the site for each house. And then if you did have an area that there was additional parking for a tourist attraction, that would be for the general public.
Great. I'm back on track now, I think. Scrolling too fast sometimes. So something that I think is important to bring up that leads to this question is there's only one of the 3 locations right now where we're considering potential community recreation. And so I wanted to mention that as part of the downtown revitalization, we do have a limited study area scope in terms of the confines of the project. But that's not to say that at a higher township level and again, county level, that larger opportunities for recreation aren't being considered. They just may not be kind of right now in our immediate downtown study area. As we know, we do have some limits in terms of space and vacancy and what those types of considerations. So I think, again, greater recreation opportunities are available and being considered. Maybe just not for the village. Okay, so I'm gonna hit that one. This one. In what way will the plan recognize the Algonquin heritage in this area? So I think, again, that's a really great kind of thought process to bring into the revitalization, which is certainly also top of mind outside of kind of the physical improvements that we're mostly talking about today. So there are different contact points with our Algonquin group that's located in this area that we'll continue to reach out to and engage with as much as possible in terms of different ways that we can work together and make sure that when we're maybe, let's say, doing banners about heritage or adding different types of, wouldn't say statues, but different types of features that do commemorate the heritage of this area, that is part of our history as well.
Yeah, if I can just chime in on that. That's something that I looked at because I just am somebody that loves history. So I was looking into the history of Charlotte Lake and actually was very intrigued by the fact that Charlotte Lake is named after the original Aboriginals who, the Anishinaabe, I believe they're Anishinaabe, who settled here. And that is something that is really exciting and very interesting. And probably not very many people from the outside even know that. I certainly didn't know that. So I think there's lots of potential for what you can do in the public spaces that you're looking at, and especially in the trailhead. If any of that is developed in addition to where the railway park is, I think there's lots of things you could do in terms of interpreting that history.
I agree. This is a question that I think I'm going to ask Karen from OMAFR to join into in terms of how this project also has strong pillars and focus on economic development, business attraction. So the question, part of the question is, or comment is, we need some retail shops in town to attract visitors. A tourist asked us last year which way to the shops, and sadly we lack gift shops and other retail outside of our necessity shops that are here. So I guess this could be a combination of Allison and Karen to kind of speak to how downtown revitalization does try to balance a lot of different focuses, and that economic development and tourism development is part of that.
Thanks, Adriana. I think, you know, a lot of people, when they think of downtown revitalization, they think of the physical streetscape and improvements. And one of the things that we've really tried hard to do in sort of building this process, and when we have communities who are embarking on downtown revitalization, to really take a look at the economic development side, you know, investment attraction, business retention, you know, that piece. Leadership and management is also really important, as is animating, you know, you know, marketing and promotion. But from an economic development perspective, if you've participated in business owner survey, resident survey, customer origin survey, any of that work that's been done, a lot of discussion is around, you know, what other sort of goods and services could we have in this community. And the more data that we've collected, we get a better understanding of what this community could actually support. So, you know, those pieces are all sort of integral to coming up with that final outcome and final set of goals and objectives for this process. And part of that will be that investment attraction and trying to understand what else would be a really good fit for this community based on the input that's been received so far. So I think it has a strong, it really has a strong element in this process.
Yeah, and if I can just chime in, I 100% agree with that. And there's just so many different ways of thinking of tourism potential for a site, and it's a very layered approach, and there's, you know, very, very many different aspects to it. And I think the ultimate goal is to definitely have more attractions, have more gift shops, have more restaurants, have more services. But one of the things that can be done, and that could be done just where it seems Charlotte Lake is in the design process and planning process, is having the planning in place to allow that to happen. So making sure that everything is zoned properly to allow that type of development to happen. And then maybe even looking at designating some areas as a community improvement area so that you can start to direct funding towards upgrading building fronts and to bring in signage and do that kind of thing. So there are a few planning mechanisms that can be drawn upon to allow that to happen as well.
Thanks, Janice. Again, you know, we lean so heavily on your experience, especially with the tourism projects that you've worked on. And thank you, Karen. I will, Allison, is there anything you wanted to add in terms of kind of where you're at with your process, the new kind of program you're working on for destination development?
Sure. So at Frontenac County, we've just started the process of a destination development plan for the entire region. And this is a process that's going to take us about a year and involve lots of community engagement. So stay tuned for an opportunity to provide some feedback there. But essentially, it looks at the entire region and the future, say 5 to 10 years from now, of tourism in our region and how we can get a tourism industry that benefits the entire community. So we're not looking at attracting visitors here just to get money in the pockets of tourism operators, but we want tourism in our region that leaves our communities better for tourism. You know, visitors come and they leave, and the community is better for having them, and that's felt across the entire communities. So certainly that's the approach. That's what we're looking at in the next 5 to 10 years across the region, and I think that those kinds of things will that plan will have actions that will trickle down at the community level, at the Sherbrooke Lake level. And I think that, you know, as Tyson said before, incremental is the way to go, and really solutions that make sense for Sherbrooke Lake. I think Janice is not recommending anything that, you know, would be out of place, that would make Sherbrooke Lake feel like, you know, a totally different place, which we don't want to see that. And I think that there are opportunities to allow for more retail operators, more tourist attractions, more things that visitors and residents will enjoy in the village, and do it in that sort of incremental, made in Sherbrooke Lake, best for the village kind of way. Oh, my kid is bleeding. So I think it's going to be really fantastic, but I think that sort of made in Sherbrooke Lake kind of solution is the way to go. I'm just going to get a Band-Aid.
Oh my goodness. I hope she's okay. That's the trouble with multitasking at home, but they're troopers. Awesome. Thanks, Allison. I just wanted to, it's always great hearing from Allison in terms of the connections and the visibility she has from that overarching regional level. And I'm just going to add a little bit in terms of the downtown revitalization. That's something that's been a part of our mission and priorities from the beginning, is that this is the first revitalization project in the county. So across all of our townships, this is the first one. But what's great about that is we're learning a lot. We're now going to have a template and a framework that we can extend to other similar and smaller communities that may be interested in, you know, maybe taking bits and pieces from this process to, you know, improve their community in various ways. So I think it's really interesting timing and exciting timing that this project's going on, and that Allison's also working on the destination plan, that again, we can support each other's initiatives. And again, just really try to extend and have this ripple effect across the entire region. I don't want to steal the mic from anyone, but I was just going to summarize a couple more questions and about speed by motorized vehicles is a safety issue on the trail that we hope will be addressed. And certainly, I know Janice has brought up multiple times in different reviews of the plan so far about safety being a priority. So there's certainly, that's a top priority. And you know, we have access again to the county and other trail partners and associations in terms of working on those type of issues as a whole. But if anyone wants to add anything about the trail, feel free to do so.
I might just jump in, Adriana. I think motorized vehicles and speed is a concern along the trail, and certainly something that we are, as the county, you know, learning more about through the village of Verona. That's, you know, that's a lesson for us to learn there, or we have lots of lessons to learn there that we can apply in Sherbrooke Lake. And as the trail you know, matures as a recreational space and more users are drawn to the trail, you know, more users equals responsible users, because you sort of self-police when you're on the trail. So I think there's a, I think it will come. I think, you know, as we, as the KMP is used more, and as these developments are, you know, as Janice has suggested, or as we've seen in the designs tonight, as they're executed, that will sort of naturally happen through Sherbrooke Lake.
Yeah. Thanks, Allison. And I think I'm going to put Tyson on the spot one more time. In terms of improvements across 38 and some of those kind of ideal cross sections in terms of visibility. I think you can probably see the question there in terms of addressing safety and future improvements.
Yeah, thanks, Adriana. I tried my best. I actually typed a response to that. I tried my best to express my passion just for traffic calming and pedestrian crosswalks. I'll just repeat myself in saying we're trying our best with the budget that we have. We've installed a couple ourselves, and they're ones that we can work off of in the future each year to become more functional and more decorative each year. So, is there any other? I'm just looking through them really quickly. Is there any other specific questions about that?
I think that sums it up in terms of, our focus and acknowledgement of safety concerns in any type of redesign. And I think, again, that's definitely fueling a lot of redesign recommendations is ultimately safety. So I don't know if Janice, you had anything that you wanted to add about that.
Yeah, as I was saying from the beginning, that is the number one, and just by defining things and making it clear paths is always better than something that's undefined. And I think that's something that is definitely doable. I can see it. We can definitely improve safety by just doing small things to define the areas. Yes.
Yeah, great. I'm just going to address one last question here that certainly comes up across all of the surveys we've done so far, is what about signage at Highway 7 to draw visitors into the village? I've heard so many different stories about driving past Charlotte Lake for years until finally someone worked it more so down towards the village, not knowing it was there. So I guess the short answer is hopefully eventually it'll be on our plan. At the moment, again, we're more so focused on deliverables within the village defined area, as this is a downtown revitalization. But we absolutely acknowledge that the highway is also part of Charlotte Lake and a different part of Charlotte Lake, but also a very high traffic area. So that's certainly something on our radar in terms of how do we enhance the visibility and that kind of draw into our beautiful downtown from the highway. So again, tons of feedback about that, and thanks for sharing that. So
Adriana, Joe, just
yeah,
on that point, the draft official plan for the township, which we talked about last night in the open house, there's some really clear vision that what the community expects of Highway 7 in the future. They don't expect it to at the 7 and 38 intersection to be a busy highway. The goal is, and I think it's important that the community has said this, so MTO, the Ministry of Transportation, is aware of this. The goal is that area become a parkway, similar to the Thousand Islands Parkway. So the traffic would slow down, and that the intersection at Highway 38 and 7 would have a stoplight. And that area around 38 and 7 would start to have more buildings around it and more of a complete community. And when I say that, that includes sidewalks, bike paths, etc. And the other positive thing about that vision is that through the last 3 years, when the township has been working on the plan, we've engaged the Algonquins, and the Algonquins have provided a variety of comments on the plan. And they have said specifically that they support that parkway vision, and they are opposed to any future type of expansion of the current highway system that would make it act more like the 401. They're opposed to that, and I think that's an important thing too. But there is a vision in the official plan, draft official plan. Not that I'm advertising that, but council's been working hard on it for the last 3 years. And there is a public meeting on May 18th, and there's a great vision for Charlotte Lake in the plan as well. So thank you.
And we will be approving that plan next meeting after our public meeting, after 3 years. just a little comment.
that's all right. Whatever we can do, hopefully everyone that's on the line tonight will jump on and get the update from that. I have to admit, I didn't join the meeting last night because I didn't want to be.
Didn't?
I didn't. I had too many meetings, and I said, you know what? Tonight I'm going to make dinner for my family, and they enjoyed it. Sorry, Joe. But speaking of, I know that this is probably right in the middle of a lot of people's what was dinner time. So we've really addressed all the major questions, and a lot of comments and just general feedback and ideas were shared. So thanks for adding that, everyone. I know this is a bit of a different format when you can't kind of speak, but the goal there wasn't to not have you speak, but it was so that we could hear from as many people as possible. There were about, I think including our panel here, we had about 56 participants. So again, it was great to hear from a large number of you. I think I'm going to wrap things up, and I know we have a lot of work to get back to in terms of now that we have additional survey information from these polls and a really great feedback. So I'm probably going to sign off, but does anyone else have anything they want to say to our captivated audience?
Sure, I would just like to say Yeah, I
See,
would
this
just
is
like
what-
to say thank you to everybody. I've really enjoyed getting to know Charlotte Lake, and we through Adriana, anybody that wants to reach out and tell us more, we're always open to hearing what everybody has to say, because the best plans that we do are for people. And because in the end, we need to, as planners, we need to make sure that what we're designing is what the community wants and needs.
Great.
I'd just like to say thanks, Janice and Melina, for all the work that you obviously did preparing for tonight. I think, this is the first time I've seen it, and being able to sort of walk through all these fantastic graphics that you had set up and the different options. Like I was right there in Charlotte Lake and picturing these kinds of things. It was really easy to follow and really easy to offer feedback. So thanks very much for your work on this.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
And thank you,
The
and to
only problem
Adriana as
is-
well.
I was going to say, the only problem is we should have been able to vote.
Don't worry, Fran. I have a whole other website where you can give tons of feedback.
Okay,
And I'm going to be promoting that a bit more. I felt like I was bombarding people with workshop and this new website, but it's a really new, exciting additional hub for the township and township projects that are like this, that are really kind of more fun and creative, and where it's so important to have the community's engagement in that.
Yeah, this exact survey will be up on the website too, to answer. Yeah.
good.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you, Karen and Joe,
Okay.
everyone, for your time.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for a great meeting.
Thanks. Night.